And here, Elizabeth said, I can... Then she continued, speaking to herself, I can give you everything. But when she didn't finish what she was saying, Ian told her, I don't know what you're talking about, madam. So she said, I mean, my emerald necklace and ruby earrings. I'm sure Ivana would like them too. I've seen her eyeing them before, and I finally understood. If you don't need the jewelry, you can sell it for gold pieces. With that much money, you could live in luxury anywhere. And it would be a waste for me to keep them since I don't have much time left anyway. So, it might make me happier if I could help you and Ivana settle down. And even if you think you don't need it because you live in this palace, you never know what might happen in the future. Oh, am I talking too much? So, what I'm trying to say is, as soon as I get married in the coming months, you and Ivana can... But Ian told her and said, if you don't shut up immediately, I don't know what I might do to you. But she said to herself, this is the reason for the bitter taste in my mouth. Therefore, she couldn't say this. And yet she told him, I will. I will set you free. And here Ian said to himself, I am a king who was exploited by a noble girl of a lower rank, and then I was discarded like garbage. Therefore he held her hands tightly. So she said to him, this hurts. Ian, this hurts. At the same time, Ian was saying to himself, I am nothing but a body that is used and then thrown away. And here he grabbed her, and she said, Ian. Then she fell silent. So he said to her, do you have any other words? Then he said to her, although I am the only one capable of satisfying you. Then he shouted, will you throw me away again under the pretext of your marriage? Here. She began to cry and said, you're scaring me, Ian. But he continued and said, how long will I let you play with me like this? You're nothing more than a dirty woman. So she looked at him in astonishment. Then he continued to do so, and she said to him, Ian, you're hurting me. And he looked at her angrily and said to himself, her marriage didn't bother me. But hearing her talk about someone else through her own lips angered me greatly. And even in such a situation, she was urging me to slow down instead of pushing me away. She claimed she wanted me day and night and was constantly jealous when she saw me with other women. Yet she still refused to tell me she loved me. She doesn't even have the will or strength to resist her family, whose only goal is to marry her off to have an heir. So I can't believe she dared to secretly plan to get rid of me all this time. But Elizabeth had already become a pleasure woman. She is now a sweet fruit that has ripened perfectly in my hands. But she expects me to let another man take her. And here, Elizabeth began to say, this hurts, Ian, this hurts. But in anger, he grabbed her hair and said, open your eyes and look at me. But she kept saying to him, this hurts. And when she opened her eyes and looked at him, he said, dare to say it again. Who is the man who can do this to you? But she said to him, you frighten me. O Ian, and he said, answer me without lying. Do you intend to take him to your bed? And here he began to say to himself, if only I could possess her completely, from her head to her feet, until nothing remains of her. She will not allow any other man to possess her in this world. I will be the only one who possesses her entire being. And here, after Elizabeth fell, she said to herself, I want to be a good person with you. So why do I always find myself hurting you? I'm sorry. And here she remembered when she was little and saw him for the first time, and they looked at each other, and here we will return to the past to know how Prince Ion reached Elizabeth's castle. And this is when someone said to Lena and Ion, news has reached us that the research team belonging to Philophon has reached the neighboring village, and we must run now. And here Lena screamed and said, but where will we go from here? We are already on the edge of the continent. Therefore someone said, my lord, wait, I have a good idea. And this is the Royal Guard and Count Acalanthi, Sir Oscar Acalanthi. and Sir Oscar's idea was that we remain disguised as servants in a remote castle until we lose the pursuers and regroup our forces. And here Sir Oscar said, "My lord, have you heard of the Battle of Calais?" To which Ian replied, "I have." Sir Oscar continued, "After that battle, your great-grandfather, King Armand, bestowed a noble title upon one of the knights of Marquis Elbanorton for his great achievements. And so Sir Lindsley Rowott became the first Viscount of Ludgate. He was also the first knight in 350 years to come from a servant's background and earn a noble title in Travasta. However, perhaps due to the harsh conditions in Ludgate, the family lost much of its power over time. Now, the House of Rowott can barely keep its head above water. That's why he suggested and said, "Why don't we wait there until we lose our pursuers? I will make arrangements so that you can hide there as a stable boy." And here Ion said to him, "That sounds good. And for your trouble, I will make your Countess Acalanthe my new mistress as soon as we return to the palace. Then your illegitimate son will be able to inherit your title." And here Oscar Acalanthe said, "While that would be more than possible with your command, that is far from the reason why I am on your side, my lord. I am truly sorry to see you not recognizing my absolute loyalty to you." Then they moved on, and he continued saying, "Oh, but while we are talking about children, the Viscount has a young daughter." And here Lena said, "Certainly that child won't be foolish enough to behave rudely to His Majesty, will she?" Then she said to herself, all young noble ladies were alike. They would smile innocently while uttering scandalous gossip behind backs, and they would behave with all elegance, but their true behavior was often cruel and hypocritical. And after spending my whole life in the palace, I got to know their kind very well, and the fact that Sir Oscar mentions her specifically like that must mean—" And here Oscar said, "All right." And here Lena called out to him and said, "Sir Oscar." But Oscar turned to her and said, "She is just a child. And of course she will seem much younger compared to a great noble lady like you, Lady Lena. And it will be fine if you consider her just a little sister." And here she said in surprise, "A little sister. She must be very young. If she is also a noble's daughter, I should have seen her at least once in the capital." And here Oscar said, "I'm sure she has never left Ludgate once in her life. Oh, but she's not a little child or anything. She is 9 years old. We can see the castle now." Then Lena said to herself, "The closer we got, the more the slave trader treated King Sybil and me like real slaves." And here the trader who would present them as slaves said, "I have prepared more ragged clothes. Please wear these over what you are wearing." Therefore, Lena continued and said to herself, "We have lost our titles and been banished to the end of the world." And here the trader who would present them said, "Then, as I explained before, I will address His Majesty as the Black Dog, and Lady Lena as the Gray Rat. Please forgive my rudeness." And Lena to herself said, "And we have finally lost our noble names as well." And here Oscar bowed and said, "All right, my lord and Lady Lena, may God be with you." And here Lena said to herself, with a short nod, Sir Oscar left. And after that, the slave trader sold us to Viscount Rowott as planned, and we were worth almost the price of a donkey. And suddenly one of Rowott's followers slapped Ion, saying, "How dare you meet your master's eye? You need a good beating." So Ion looked at him angrily. And then the one who had slapped him began to tremble, saying to him, "You bastard!" And then another person said, "Back off, I'll teach him a lesson." At that moment, little Elizabeth was looking out the window at Ian being beaten. And here went to him Viscount Rowott, saying to him, "Oh, it seems you have finally found your place. What shall we do with this arrogant slave? We can sell him again to the slave trader in the poor neighborhoods, or we can kill him here and feed his body to the dogs." So Ian asked and said, "Which one do you prefer?" And here Lena was watching what was happening to her prince, and she was trembling. And here Rowott said to Ian, "At least I'll be kind enough to let you choose." But suddenly Elizabeth came and said, "Me too. I want to see him too." And here she hit him and said, "Leave him. Leave him. I want to see him." And he said, "Your Majesty." But she placed her hands on Ian's face and said, "I will see him." And she began to look at him. And here she felt embarrassed, and then said, "What is this?" And here he said to her, "These slaves are our property now. I just bought them from the merchant." And here Elizabeth smiled and said, "I know that."